Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of my Forever Learning emphasis. And today for the very first time, I get to sit down with a major college coach. So we're doing the voice of a major college coach today. This interview is with Brad Smith, and Brad is the assistant golf coach at Ohio State University. Brad started on that staff in 2015 and has been key to both the success of that program and the growth of that program both on the golf course, but also especially academically. Brad played at Ohio State from 2007 to 2011. His senior year, they made a deep run at the national championships, and Ohio State actually finished fifth in the national championships, which is the highest for many, many, many years. And Brad was the low individual on that team, finishing 17th in the individuals at the NCAA championship. Some of the guys on that team, Bo Hogue in particular, has gone on to success in professional golf. Bo is currently has status on the PGA Tour, and you'll see him playing on Sundays. And is one of Brad's very, very best friends. Brad grew up in Peru, Indiana, and he's the son of a PGA professional. He's also the nephew of a former PGA Tour player, Chris Smith, who some of you who go back deep in the golf world might recognize that name. Chris had been an All-American at Ohio State as well. So Brad's roots run deep in the game of golf, and in the coaching world, he has just been able to apply a lot of very interesting learnings from both his own experience and just from his own insights. Brad is very articulate, engaging, fun. This was a blast to do this interview. Brad and I had never actually talked before this interview. We were introduced recently by a friend and had planned to actually have a breakfast together when I was traveling up to Columbus, Ohio back in March. Had to cancel that trip because it literally happened right when all the pandemic stuff started. So Brad and I had never had a chance to speak, so this interview was really the first chance to do that. I can't tell you how much fun I had talking to Brad. Easy guy to talk to, easy guy to enjoy, and I think you'll enjoy this interview a lot. There were some technical challenges on the Wi-Fi connection and the internet for this interview, and so there'll be some glitches that you'll notice along the way, but I think you'll still get a lot out of this interview. I think you'll really enjoy what Brad has to say about golf if you're into golf, but I think you'll also enjoy some of his insights that even go beyond golf. I'm excited for you to hear this. Let's take a listen to Brad Smith. All right, welcome. It is an honor and privilege to have Brad Smith with me today. And Brad is the assistant golf coach at Ohio State University. And the people who know me know that I'm a Buckeye living in the South, carrying the Buckeye flag down here amongst enemy territory in football season for sure. But it is awesome to talk with somebody that's connected to Ohio State and is a Buckeye at heart. And Brad has been at Ohio State. Brad, I think you're coming up on 5 years as in the coaching role. Is that true?
Yeah, five seasons now in the books. So summer getting ready for season number 6. But appreciate you having me on,
All
Phil.
right.
Looking forward to chatting. And I know you're outnumbered down in Hilton Head, but I also know that a lot of Ohio people, throughout the year make their way down to that neck of the woods. So you guys have a pretty good gathering down there.
Yeah, we really do. Actually, the island, there's kind of a joke on Hilton Head Island about how it is Buckeye. It's a Buckeye state in the South. We even have, believe it or not, we even have a pizza place here that is a Buckeye themed pizza place. Literally looks like you're on campus at like Eddie George's or the Buckeye Cafe or something. Stuff all over the walls on game day football season. You can't get in the door. They won't let you in the door without Buckeye gear on. So
That's awesome.
it is amazing. Brad, you played at Ohio State, I believe, from 2007 to 2011, and from what I was seeing, really decorated playing career there. You achieved a lot, had a great run in the NCAA championships. You also had phenomenal academic success as academic All-American, et cetera, et cetera. So, This is fun. I love having the playing perspective and the coaching perspective.
Yeah, Ohio State's a special place, and so
Yeah.
I've been really fortunate to, you know, not only experience college there and kind of get prepared for the next steps in my life. Now I'm back and working alongside some of the people that helped me as an athlete, get to be in that coaching role now at a place like Ohio State. It has been a really fun journey, and it's just crazy the way kind of things work out, and being able to call Columbus home now. I've been very fortunate in that regard.
That's very cool. I'm a Columbus guy at heart, still always will be. Behind me, I got Buckeye shirt, Cincinnati Reds, Columbus Blue Jackets. I'm all I'm all Buckeyed out. So let's this is really going to be fun. So Brad, tell me just a little bit um, from your perspective as a coach. Now you've been coaching, like you said, 5 seasons, coming up on 6 seasons. What's something that you just really you love about coaching, but when you think back about getting started in coaching, you might not have thought about this part as much? Like what's something that's really fun about coaching that maybe is almost a little bit of a surprise to you?
That's I think when I started out coaching, I thought I knew a lot more than I actually did. And now 5 years, plus into it, I realize that I still know very little and am learning every day and have a lot to learn. But it's been interesting to, work with a variety of different players and just see how everybody sees and approaches the game a little bit differently. And so the way that I played the game and that I grew up in the game and the way that I approach the game may be totally different from one of my players. And it doesn't have to be one way or the other. Like, you can be successful kind of doing it your own way and finding your own path. And so just kind of being exposed to that and trying to then connect with guys in the way that they learn, in the way that they see and feel things. And I might have three guys on the driving range, and my conversation with each player is going to look different and sound different, but we're trying to achieve the same thing.
Wow. So, which requires, I mean, obviously, what's involved in that is a real skill of not only really getting to know them as a golfer, but getting to know them as a person and
Yeah,
discovering, yeah, really discovering what it is that communicates with them, what motivates them, where they reside on not just the golfer side, but on the relational side too. And it sounds like that side of it is something that you looks like the look on your face says you enjoy that kind of thing, huh?
I do. I do. Being at Ohio State, you get exposed to a lot of different people, and I've been fortunate to hear Urban Meyer speak a lot. And his, founding blocks of what he does is built on trust. You have to have that trust as a player and a coach relationship. And so a lot of what we try to do, like you said, is relationally connect, build that trust. Because if my guy doesn't trust me or buy into what I'm saying, I mean, I could be giving him the perfect formula, but he's not going to listen. So there has to be, from the player coach perspective, there has to be that level of trust that's built over, so a lot of times it's time spent off the golf course together, just hearing stories, talking, sharing hardships, victories, all that stuff kind of goes into building that trust. And once that trust is formed, then you can really take off and run with it.
Yeah, that is so good. I regularly talk with coaching friends about the challenges of building trust and how sort of in the modern world of marketing driven spin everything, I think young people are more maybe the positive word is more discerning about what they do with their trust. Some people would say they're more cynical or more deeper in the hole on that. But I love how what you're describing is off off the course or outside of the competitive environment is equally critical to establishing that level of equity in the athlete, right? So that to me really kind of bridges to I talk a lot about focusing on human skills in athletics, And it's kind of this side that says, I said the golfers I work with and the golf teams that I work with, I often will say, you're not just a golfer, you're a human being playing golf. And let's talk about you as a person, not just your technique or not just, the what's going on the course. So human skills for me get into areas like handling pressure or managing emotions or learning to adapt and adjust to changes that weren't expected, which is about what 99% of the game of golf. So
Golf and life.
golf and life, right? So when you think about the human side of golf, what's something that you see differently about that as a coach than maybe you had any radar for when you were a player?
Yeah, it's funny. My college coach used to tell us all the time when I was playing that he would give us advice, and he told us that you can trust me on this because I'm a step removed from you being the actual player, and so I have less emotion about what's happening right now. I can see it a little more clearly, and I think my experience as a coach has held true to that. That you know I I'm watching a lot, and I'm not the one hitting the shot, and so I'm that level removed that I can take a much more neutral look and not have the emotional highs and lows that the players have. And so, I try to use that to my advantage, to whether if a guy's struggling, try to talk some positivity into him. And then if a guy's playing really well at the same time, also talking to him and saying, hey, now's not the time to get reckless. Like, you're playing great. Just keep doing what you're doing one shot at a time.
Yep. That's really good. That is really good. I love the perspective that you're talking about where it's, you're discerning what's going on with them beyond just what the scorecard says or what the shot shape looked like, or, you're actually both remembering probably what it was like for you in each of those situations,
Oh, yeah.
but also then but also marrying that with this knowledge that you've gained of them both as an individual and as an athlete. The observing piece is really interesting. So in golf, and I know you probably spend almost as much time observing them play as you do almost anything else. And that observation perspective is really interesting. So when you think about observing or watching, what are some common tendencies? And I know it's individualized and it's hard to talk in sweeping terms, but what's something you observe that are common tendencies that show up in college golfers under pressure that maybe don't show up as much when they're just having a relaxed round of golf or they're playing in something that doesn't even mean anything to them? What are some tendencies that you see from the observational seat about what shows up when it's like when the pressure's clamping down?
Yeah, I like your thought here. And, just going back to the observing, I can usually tell if a guy's playing good or bad from 300 yards away or two fairways over, um, because, I think body language tells a lot. And in pressure situations, I feel like a lot of times the tendency is that players will speed up. So not just their swing, but their pace of walking, their pace of going through their bag, shooting the yardage, everything they do, typically I'll see becomes heightened, elevated, faster, and then that can also lead to a little bit of a spiral out of control, um, to a degree. So I think that's something that we try to make our players aware of. And I think emotions are really interesting when it comes to the game because I used to always think I need to stay really level through the course of my round, but I don't believe it's physically possible to remove experience and emotions, especially in something that you're very invested in. And so if we can kind of teach our guys to recognize their emotions and be okay with that, and then let them know that, okay, I'm experiencing this, I need to go down to the basics of what I do, my routine, my breathing, versus like feeling these emotions and just letting them consume you and pour out into your reactions, and you lose control. recognize the emotions and actually take them and be like, okay, I need to like reset, take a couple deep breaths, feel like I'm moving slow, and kind of use those emotions as like a sign, and use them to your advantage versus letting them consume you and kind of spill out and make you erratic.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I use language a lot. Like emotions are like dashboards on the light of our car. They're indicating something, but they're not automatically making something happen. They're just indicating something. And I like how you're, and this is really what you're saying, Brad, really resonates with me because I part of what I mean when I say to golfers, you're a human being playing the game. It's okay to have
For
emotions.
sure.
Human beings feel things, right? And I my sense is that younger athletes tend to take certain emotions as being like almost like commentary on their value or their ability or their confidence. So if I get nervous, it means something's I'm not as good as I think I am, and automatically I start that perspective starts spiraling me into a bad place. Whereas you hear people like Tiger, or in other sports, you'll hear, I know Rafael Nadal in tennis says this kind of stuff all the time. I'm nervous. He says, I'm always
Yep.
nervous. Like, that's not an indicator that something's wrong with me. That's an indicator that, I think you even said this a second ago, this matters to me.
Yeah. I mean,
Right. So love that. Love
I
that.
still, I don't play a whole lot anymore, but if I go out and play with our players, I get nervous on the first tee just playing with a group of them. But it doesn't mean that I can't perform. It just it means, like you said, that I care about it, that I'm invested, and I kind of use that as like, all right, this is something that I'm going to go do, and try to really harness that, and stay within myself, and go have some fun with it rather than letting that nervousness consume me.
Yeah, I love it because it's a what you're describing, and very you're doing this very well, is those emotions are part of me, but they don't automatically dominate me.
Yep, for sure.
They don't automatically define the score that I shoot today,
Yep.
right?
And
They're just
the same thing carries over into all aspects of your life,
yeah,
relationships, everything. If we let these emotions drive how we react and respond to everything that comes at us, it's going to be a roller coaster.
yeah, yeah.
But if we can kind of learn to understand what those emotions mean, and how we can use them to our advantage as triggers or warning signs in different situations, I think it's pretty cool what we can do with that.
Yeah, that is literally what I call mental skills right there. That just that recognition, and then actually having the ability to both be self-aware enough to recognize it and then have a toolkit of where to go with it, what to do with it, how it works for you, which is often very personalized. So kind of stay on that same topic, but maybe come at it from a little different angle. I'm kind of curious about how you would answer this. So, if you play a round of golf, I mean, 4 hours is pretty, that's probably not even a slow round anymore. Like a 4 hour round of golf would be 240 minutes. And if somebody shoots par, they've made 72 strokes, roughly, depending on what the par is, but 72 strokes. The amount of time that you actually spend moving a golf club from the time it leaves the ball until the ball leaves the face
Not very
in
long.
a 72 strokes, maybe a second to second and a half per. So we're now at maybe 2 minutes of actually physically hitting a ball. And we've got 238 minutes where something else is going on. Something
Yeah,
else
for
is happening
sure.
out there.
The golf's
So
very
when
unique
you
in
think
that.
about it, yeah, doesn't it? It's like it's set up to make you wacky. I mean, so here's my question for you. When you think about it that way, what would you say is a differentiator mentally or emotionally that separates division 1 golfers that are really really good from division 1 golfers that just don't quite get to that elite level? Like, what are they doing in those 238 minutes that's actually helping their skills perform at a higher level? What differentiates that in your from your experience as a golfer and as a coach?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and this is something that I struggled with as a player, and late in my playing career, I got a better grasp on. But I think the really elite players know who they are and aren't defined by individual shots or even individual rounds or tournaments. And so they have an ability to shake off bad holes or bad tournaments a lot faster than I think that the more average player gets caught up in. If he plays great, he feels great about himself and has a high expectation going into the next event. But if he struggles, that can define who they view themselves as. And instead of being able to come back fresh the next time or on the next shot, that one bad shot could linger on for 6 holes, 9 holes, an entire 54-hole tournament. So I think the really elite players have a much better ability to have that kind of inner confidence and know who they are and know that, it's the shooter's mentality in basketball. If you miss the next five, you expect to make the next shot. That the five that you missed prior doesn't define your chances of making the next one. I think the really good players do that exceptionally well. They never get down. And so, like our sport in college, it's a 54-hole tournament. So, even if you're 4 over after 6 holes, you still have 48 holes that, you got work to do. And so I think the good players over the course of an event and over the course of a season separate themselves in that way.
And do you see? I mean, I'm sure you do. So it's not even it's sort of a rhetorical question, but more of like an example of a golfer that comes in maybe as a freshman, and they've got lots of talent. You've recruited them, you've seen it. They've got skill, but they step into a new environment, a new world, a different team, different courses, different levels of competition, and they don't really have what you're describing, that grounded sense of who I am. They only know who they were when they were successful in high school or maybe AJGA or something that was working well for them. And they almost get into like a scramble mode, shot for shot, round for round, on identity and confidence and who I am and whether I fit with the team and whether I'm contributing or not, or whether I'm getting to travel or not, like whatever the boundaries are around that. And maybe they come in that way, but you really see that growth and progress happen now that you've been in it for
Hmm.
several years. You see 2 or 3 years into it. So how do you see that sense of really identity and groundedness in who they are that you're describing? How do you see that grow and develop throughout a college career with these golfers?
Um, some of it's learning the hard way, like going through hard spots and having difficult conversations of why you feel like you're struggling and why things aren't going well. And it may not always be what you want to hear, but having those hard moments and hard conversations can define us and allow us to grow and come out of it stronger. And then another piece I think is a lot of times we see players can sometimes the way they approach goals, I think, is very interesting. And so with our team, our quote unquote goal every year is to win the Big Ten championship. But we all know that and we're all striving for that. We don't have to have that posted everywhere. And if we don't win the Big Ten championship, it doesn't mean that the year is a failure. So we try to talk with guys both from the team perspective and then individually, like creating tangible goals that are within their control that they can chase day in or every week or a little bit more on the short term so that the focus and energy is a little bit more harnessed versus I want to be the individual Big Ten championship and win the US amateur this year. Well, as a golfer and a competitor, that's what you want to do, but just putting those up is they're a long way off. There's a lot that has to take place to allow those to happen. So getting more caught up in the process and the journey versus like all these external rewards or achievements or expectations, I think plays a big part into that as well.
Yeah. So just give me a taste. You mentioned a minute ago that you wish you would have had that more when you were playing. Like you look back, right? You look back, hindsight's 2020, and we wish, so if Coach Brad was having a conversation with, early freshman, sophomore player Brad, and I know you had some success, I think, even as a freshman, like you played well. But if you were having that conversation now, and it really was sort of in that topic of how you're really grounded in who you are, and not letting that just be like blown around by whatever the latest shot was, or the latest hole was, or the latest round, or even the latest tournament. Like what advice would have helped you back when you were playing to say, oh yeah, there's something more than just that number I wrote on the scorecard after the round today.
Right, right. Well, it's hard in college because you're in this environment where your world does function around this game that we're playing. And so, you go to class, but outside of class, the mornings are working out, the afternoons are at the golf course, practicing in the evenings. You live with other guys on the team, so you're constantly talking about qualifying and tournaments. So your whole world kind of becomes wrapped around this game. And I don't think I did a great job finding different outlets to just kind of escape for a little bit, which I don't think that would have hurt my performance at all. I think it would have actually been healthy and helped. And so it was interesting. I got married the summer before my senior year at Ohio State. And so my senior year, I was married. And so it was really interesting. It was by far my best year, especially the finish to that year. I won an event late in our season, was second team All Big Ten. I was our low guy at nationals, top 100 player that year. So I had a really good season, but being married, I could go home and it was an escape from golf. So if I was getting home at 6 or 7 o'clock at night, my wife did not want to hear about practice or who beat me that day or how qualifying was going. Like, she wanted me to be successful, but she wanted to tell me about her day and wanted to
Yeah.
plan something for us to do on Sunday, that was fun. And so it gave
Yes.
me kind of a little outlet from the game that I could step back. I didn't have this constant pressure that I was constantly thinking about who I had to beat or what I had to do next. And it was really interesting that year, my performance level improved dramatically, kind of having that in place.
Yeah, so I think what you're recommending here is, have a little bit of diversity in your life, because what we could do, I could work with you and we could set up a way to get your freshmen and sophomores married. So if we could get them married,
It would take a special man for that.
I don't think that's what you're recommending.
No, no. But I think having just different areas that call it balance or rhythm, just to change kind of that cadence of
Yeah,
you're not being defined by how you performed on the golf course that
yeah,
day, and how you perform that day doesn't determine how you're going to perform tomorrow or how you're going to perform next week. And if
yeah,
you're constantly wrapped up in that world, it can be hard to keep that perspective. You can get really bogged down in a hurry.
yeah. And I love the space that you're in, because you get to help guide young men in trying to find that balance, right? Because there's some, you guys, I'm sure, would have this too. I know other programs that I work with, there's some players on the team that don't get the hard work side of it. Like, they're not putting in the effort because they got so much else that they're distracted by or whatever. And then you've got some players like you're describing that it is really the only part of their world. And I mean, obviously, academics, you guys have done very, very well in that space. And congrats! I think you had several people recognized just in the last couple of weeks, right, for
Yeah, we
academics on
had
your
six
team.
guys that were academic All Big
Wow.
Ten, which is I think our team GPA was like a 3.57. at the end of the spring. So yeah, guys have crushed it in the classroom.
I love that. I love that. But helping them figure out what it means to not just mean that more is more, but in some a little less is more in the right way, and learning how to
Absolutely.
do that.
And we talk a
Yeah.
lot too about working efficiently. You know, 3 hours at the golf course isn't the same to everybody. Like, what do you make of those 3 hours? And so some guys can get more out of 2 hours because their cell phone's turned off.
Yeah.
They're focused and intentional with what they're doing. They have a plan set out before they get to the golf course of what they're going to do that day. Whereas other guys may spend 6 hours out there, but it's haphazard, not a lot of direction. And so we really talk a lot about practice plans and intentionality and what guys are doing with their time so that, they're efficient because they, at a place like Ohio State, they have to be with the demands
Yeah.
of going to the gym, going to class, tutoring, any sort of social life you want to have on top of that. I mean, there's a lot of different ways that your time gets pulled at.
Yeah. Give me just a small taste, and I know I've both talked to different coaches about this, and I've heard a lot of different D1 coaches talk about this, and I know there's a variety of philosophies on this. It's what you just referred to. Give me a sense of how the balance works for you guys between really self-directed. You're encouraging certain things, but they're self-directing as far as their practice, what they're focused on in their practice, how much time they're putting in, versus really giving them solid direction, establishing plans for them, practice times, what they're focused on, and maybe even what they're being held accountable to or reporting back on, what you guys are working with them during practice. How much of what you guys do falls more on you're really kind of giving them overall guidance, but expecting them to self-direct versus we're establishing practice plans, times, and focal points for everybody's time off the course, or I mean, off of the competitive environment course?
Yeah. Normally 1 or 2 days a week, we call them like a practice on your own type of day. And that's where it's the player's discretion, granted that it's approved by us as coaches.
Okay.
So on those days, guys have the options if they want to go out on the golf course and player practice, or if they want to work on the range or work on the short game area. But it has to be run through us. So a guy can't just say, "Hey, I'm going to go hit balls for 2 hours." It has to be, I'm going to work on distance control with my wedges for 45 minutes. I'm going to work on ball flight with my irons for 45 minutes. And I'm going to work on hitting driver into different fairways on the range for 30 minutes. So we try to give guys flexibility to do that 1 or 2 days a week. And then, the other 3 days a week, we'll either qualify or play out on the course.
Yep.
Or we try to go out on the course a lot. And some days it may be we don't hit tee shots and we don't putt, but we go to, like this year, inside 150 was a big focus point for us. So on hole one, we'd have every guy hit from 132 yards, and they'd chart if they hit the green and what their proximity is.
Oh,
and,
nice.
and not even put out, but just rather than hitting on the range, they're hitting shots into a green. We might go the whole 9 holes like that, and that would be our practice for the day. And then we
that.
analyze what they do, and stats play a big part into it too. As kind of we go through the season, we the stats build, and we look at each individual guy's strengths and weaknesses, and the courses we're playing coming up. How does their game fit into that? And if we know we're going to play a lot of wind coming up, like going down to Florida and Hilton Head in February and March, we know it's going to be windy. So in Ohio, leading up to that, we'll work on a lot of flat shots and controlling the flight, bringing the flight down. So it kind of changes throughout the year, but we definitely try to give guys ownerships of their game, but at the same point, have input and try to help them have a better understanding of their game and where they're at and how they can get better.
Thank you for explaining that. That makes a lot of sense. So, Brad, I could just keep asking you questions like this all day. So this is just fun for me, man. Thank you. But what I'm doing with everybody I interview is I do a thing called the back nine, And the
Okay.
back nine is, the Masters doesn't start till the back nine on Sunday. So,
That's right.
so the interview actually starts about right now. So I want to
Okay.
give you, I'll put you under the pressure cooker
Yeah, we'll
now. So
see if I'm
we'll
ready.
see we'll
See
see
if
if
I
you're
handle
ready.
the nerves.
Yeah, you might need a mental skills coach after this. I don't know, but let's. So I got 9 questions, and these aren't just generic. I've actually given some thought to what I would want to ask you.
All right.
And this is kind of just first thing that comes to mind. You can expound a little bit if you want. You don't have to. Totally up to you. All right. So here we go. Question number 1: all-time favorite athlete in any sport, and why?
Oh man, that's tough. um, Man, I love Jordan. I know the documentary just came out, and I was actually
Yeah.
an Indiana Pacer fan growing up. So he killed my team those last couple years.
Broke your heart.
But just the way he competed, and the way he, almost to a fault, the way he challenged his teammates and brought everybody around him up. It's got to be Jordan. And the shoes. I mean, I love the shoes.
Well, yeah. How could you not? Brad knows my 2 sons, and they've got multiple pairs of Jordans. Man, that's a big thing with those guys. So,
Oh yeah.
um, second question: who's the person that was most influential in getting you started in golf and helping fuel your growth in the game?
It was my dad. So my dad is a club professional and was a great player in his own right. And so he got a club in my hand at a young age, and I tried to follow him around the golf course every day growing up. The funny thing is I was a pretty good player, but I didn't beat him until my senior year of high school. So he was a very good player, and that was honestly what pushed me for a long time. Was I want to beat my dad. I had a lot of close calls and blew it a few times, but we're still very close, and we love talking about the game. And he still teaches and coaches juniors, and we still learn from each other, and have a lot of great discussions. And golf's been a big part of my family's life.
Oh, I love that. Man after my own heart. Me and my bond with my boys really is on a lot of things, but golf is very central to a lot of that. So lifelong.
Absolutely.
That's so much fun for life, right? Third question: one positive thing from COVID quarantine that you would like to build more consistently into your life after it's over.
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say just more intentional time with my kids and my wife. It's Our lives tend to get super busy and frantic and fast paced, which we love, but just having the ability to kind of chill out for a little bit and refocus and spend quality time together, that's not just an hour or two pocket of time that we happen to have a break amongst all the other chaos. So I think just intentionally building a little bit more downtime and intentional family time into our schedules once things fully get back to normal.
That's a great one, man. I think we could all benefit from pulling a little bit of COVID quarantine into our outside after quarantine lives if we would look at it that way. That's super
I will
helpful.
say I do want my kids to go back to school. I do not want to continue to be their school teacher. That one can end as soon as possible.
How, how many parents love school teachers like never before in their life, right?
Well, it's funny. I worked at junior clinic this morning at a club here in town, and I asked all the kids. I was like, "Did you guys like homeschool, or do you like going to school better?" And it was unanimously that they like going to school better than school at home.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. All right. There's been lots of talk in golf recently over the last year or so about rule changes. So we've had lots of kind of significant rule changes from the history of golf and traditions of golf and all that. If you could change one rule, if Brad Smith had the rule authority for, we'll just say USGA, we won't give you Royal and American, but we'll just say for USGA, What rule would you say, man, we should do something about that?
I'm going to go outside the box here, but my world of golf would have an auto two putt rule. Hit If you get the ball in the green, give it a run, and if you miss it, I don't want to be sweating 3, 4, 5 footers, and I don't want to see you sweating them either. So I think it would help pace of play. I mean, I think there's a lot of positives.
Wow. So I can imagine an army of people that would get behind you.
I don't know how likely that one is to pass anytime soon, though.
Yeah, I probably would have a hard time seeing it, but you'd have a lot of emotional energy behind.
That's right.
All right, least favorite thing a college assistant golf coach has to do that's part of the job.
Oh man. Could go a lot of different ways with this one too, but driving the van is we have long days at the golf course, and I'll be honest, I can sleep anywhere, so a lot of times it sounds good just to hop in the van and kind of close your eyes for a little bit, but usually I'm the guy behind the wheel, and I see a lot of eyelids but behind me. There's not a lot of talk or chatter. So it'd probably be the van duty.
That's not surprising. That would make sense, right? I saw number 6. I heard a golfer say this recently, and maybe this is normal in your world. I don't know if I'd ever heard this before. This golfer said that they never walk through the tee markers when they leave a tee box. That's their like superstition thing. So like, so it made me wonder, did you have any routines or habits, maybe bordering on superstitions, that you did before or during tournaments when you were a player, or maybe even as a coach now? Is there anything that like, we're not ready to go until I do this, or during a tournament, you're not in your comfort zone until you got something specific that you've done?
There's I always mark my ball the quarter, but I don't have any like weird tee in the pocket things or
Okay.
anything like that. So
Heads or
I don't
tails up?
have much.
Did you have that kind of thing with your marker?
No, I'm not very superstitious. One thing I do though is I always put my bag. I'm a right-handed golfer, so I always put my bag on the right side of the tee box, which I think I was taught that in college. And prior, I'd never had any thought of it. But so when you hit as a right-hander, you walk towards your bag. Versus if it was on the left side, I would have to hit and then turn around and go back to my bag. But now I
Totally
notice
logical.
that all the time. Very few people do that, and so there's people going everywhere on the tee boxes.
You're driving around the cart going, this is just wrong, man.
Yeah,
That's just not.
I just keep it to myself though.
I love it. That's really good. All right, best advice from a coach, or maybe from your dad, but best advice that you ever got for your golfing career when you were a player.
um, I think just that enjoy the journey. It's in golf. There's honestly there's a lot of hard days. I mean, there's a lot of times when you don't have your best stuff, and when you do have those really good days, like soak that in and celebrate it. And when you have the not so good days, just kind of shake it off and try to keep going. Kind of like what we talked about already, but just enjoying that journey and realizing that at the end of the day, it is just a game, and we play it for fun and enjoyment, and to try to challenge and push ourselves.
So you mentioned this earlier. This is question number 8, but I ran across this and just reading some stuff about you. So I know when you were a senior, you guys made a good run at the NCAAs, and you went pretty deep, and you finished low man for the team. You finished significantly high in the individual competition. What do you remember from that experience that was? I'm gonna test my golfing theory here on you. So what was one shot you remember hitting in the NCAA championships that was in a meaningful situation and you pulled it off and the memory is still fresh to you?
So it's the last hole of the stroke play part of the tournament. So I knew we were close. I thought we were probably in, but I didn't know for sure we were, because the top 8 teams advanced to match play.
Yeah.
I think we started the day maybe 10th or 11th. So we were playing with teams that were right around us
Okay.
in score. And it's hard to kind of know, because it's not just you, it's 5 guys.
Yeah.
It's hard to, you have an idea, but it's hard to know exactly. So I knew we were close, and we actually finished on the ninth hole, which was a par 5. I think I missed the fairway off the tee and had to lay up. So I lay it down to like 100 yards into the green. And my normal 60 degrees, like 90. Like that's kind of my stock, because I don't want to try to kill it.
Yeah.
And so I pull out 56, and it would be a small 56, because my normal 56 is like 110. So I would be kind of chipping it in there. And I pull out my 56, and I take a few swings, and I just felt juiced at that point. There was a ton of people around. And so I put it back in the bag, and I pull out my 60, and I'm like, I'm just going to hit a hard one, try to fly it past the hole, and spin it back. And I did that successfully. I mean, this 60 degree probably carried 110 yards, had a ton of spin on it, and brought it back to like 8 feet. And then I made the putt for 4 on the last hole with a pretty big crowd. So it was really cool. But I still think about that shot a lot, just because I had 56 out. It should have been a 56, but I felt the adrenaline in the moment, and I just kind of rolled with my gut and pulled off the shot. It was fun.
I love that. All the golfers out there, like, listen to what the man just said, not how far he hit it. I'm not saying that. Listen to the fact that he had enough self awareness to recognize in a crazy pressure moment not to just force something to happen, but to actually end up making a good decision, even if it took a few more seconds to make the decision. I love that, man. That's so
Yeah,
cool.
and adrenaline, it's actually, when I'm with a guy and he's playing well out on the course, it's something we talk about, because it might be 5 yards, but if you're hitting your irons 5 yards farther because you're amped up a little bit, like you need to factor that in to your yardages, and be aware, of that feeling and that emotion.
That's so good. I don't even remember what it was. It might have been a playing lessons on the Golf Channel, or one of the YouTube people was doing a round with a pro, with a PGA pro, and they were talking about yardages. How far do you hit this? How far do you hit that? And the pro literally said, "Well, today I'll hit it about this far, but in a tournament I would hit it this far."
Yep,
And they
absolutely.
were literally like, "What are you talking about?" And it was exactly that. My caddy knows that when in a tournament, and then as the adrenaline gets going, the yardages change, and we actually factor that in all the time.
Yep, for
So
sure.
man, it was so good. There you go, right there. All right, last question. My favorite question. I ask everybody this.
Okay.
Curious to see what you answer. So, if a golfer on your team, could be on a road trip, could be in the van, could be wherever, a golfer on your team, we're going to say a word or a phrase that everybody on the team knew they were imitating Coach Smith, what would the word or phrase be that your guys would associate with you? What would be the Brad Smith word or phrase?
Oh man. Well, my guys give me a hard time because I love working out. And so the joke would probably be, I would be asking, where's the gym and what time does it open at the hotel? They love giving me a hard time. I do a lot of workout analogies when I'm talking with them, so they give me a hard time for
That's so good. That is really good. Well, you can go back to your team and ask them if that's what you should have answered.
that. I'll probably get some confirmation on that.
That's awesome. Brad, this is so much fun, man. I can't thank you enough for giving me some time today. It is great to talk to you. Your insights are just so valuable. I talk regularly, and I'm doing all these interviews to just kind of continue to promote for me and for the people that I work with, and anybody that might hear it, this idea of forever learning, that there's
Yep.
always further to go. There's always more to grasp and understand. And you've laid it down for us today, and I really appreciate it, man. It means a lot to me. I can't wait to get back up to Columbus, and I think I owe you breakfast or dinner or something. So let's
Well, we'll have to tee it up sometime. How
I
about
totally love
that?
that. Totally love that. Thanks so much, Brad.
I appreciate you having me on, Phil, and look forward to chatting and connecting again down the road.
All right. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Phil.